Alright, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sea Power. And a basic little first overview of the very basics of the rock, paper, scissors inside Sea Power. So, I've currently generated a small mission just to show off some basic stuff, which to be completely fair and honest, I am still learning the game myself, but let's go over some of the basics. So, we got Formation Manager, obviously, right here. So you can use this to, select your formation. So in this group, we got aircraft, got naval, we got our airbase, and we got the submarine. So the four arms of the rock, paper, scissors anvil that is in Sea Power. So we're going to jump to the naval group first, considering it does contain... It's the naval units, the naval surface units, I should say, are the all-around units in the game. So the carrier here can engage surface threats with its aircraft. It can engage subsurface threats with a specific aircraft. This one here, it's the S3A. It's an anti-surface and also can be used as anti-ship with Mark AGM-84 harpoons, as well as carrying Mark 82 bombs. It has an anti-submarine, which can drop sonar buoys and carries 4 Mark 46 torpedoes, which are very, very dangerous torpedoes. It can deal with anti-air threats with the Phantoms, and the A7s, I believe, can also technically be used in the anti-air role, but they're not the best at it. And then the Ace-3Hs are... oh yeah, they're hunter-killers, so they are more anti-submarine warfare capability vessels. And they also have anti-surface, both anti-surface vessel and anti-surface land. With their A6s, they have that. They also have ECM, warfare with the EA6B, and they can also put up an E2C for spotting. So carrier is effectively, it can deal, provided it's at range, with anything it can come across, provided its aircraft aren't all destroyed. And it does have some, defensive measures. It has some RIM 7s in these box launchers here, these 8 launchers on the aft port side and the forward starboard side, if I'm remembering, because port is left, starboard is right. So they have 2 of those. They also have some CIWS platforms around. At least it should. Actually, no, the Forrestal doesn't. It only has RIM 7s. It must be the Kitty that has the not RIM 7s, but the CIWS. See, ships like carriers and all can carry things to deal with other ships, but they can't really deal with other things themselves. What are you again? The Galveston class. It's not a carrier, but it does have missiles. It does have RIM 8s. So it can deal with engaging surface threats. It can also deal with aircraft threats, but it can't deal with subsurface threats. It has no capabilities to attack subsurface threats. It does have some defenses, and we'll go into that a little bit later, just going over some of the stat card stuff, but it's only surface and anti-air combatant. Spruance here can engage everything. It even has helicopters, so it can also find subsurface threats. But unlike the carrier, Ships like the Spruans and the Perry and all that, if they take hits from big weapon systems like a harpoon and all that, they tend to go down. They just don't have enough mass to allow their damage control teams to effect repairs in time to keep the ship full. But at least what I've observed so far, like aircraft carriers tend to be more resilient in that way, but they're also more vulnerable in that when you get up close, especially if they can't actually see you yet, they're very vulnerable to being hit. Then we have, just in order to write in the map for a second, that's for a demonstration later, we also have submarines. Submarines can deal with surface vessels. They can't deal with aircraft. Submarines are also extraordinarily hard to find. This is a nuclear submarine. Now, if this was a NATO diesel-electric, a diesel-electric will probably find a nuclear submarine before the nuclear submarine finds a diesel-electric. Unless the nuclear knows there's something in the area and switches to active sonar. But active sonar will reveal the fact that, hey, I'm over here. It's the same thing with the Los Angeles also has 8 harpoons that it can launch, as well as its 6 Mark 48s. But the harpoon launch is effectively a big old sign saying, I am right here. Come and get me. So, it's a risk-reward thing. Submarines are very good when they are unknown. The enemy doesn't know they're there. That's their environment. They're the guys hiding in the bush, waiting for the right time to strike. Because they have very little defenses against, well, aircraft they have nothing, and against ships and all that, they can only kill them before they get attacked themselves. They only have noisemakers to defend themselves. Aircraft can also deal with everything, however they're also vulnerable to things like land-based SAM units and missile launches from ships. And it also depends on the aircraft. So this A6E Intruder, for example, is currently set up as with a laser designator. It can be set up to have harpoons, bombs, you know, depending on the mission on the flight deck, you can set it up differently. This F-15, again, it didn't save my configuration setup for missiles and that, is purely air superiority, generally speaking. There is a strike package for it, I'm pretty sure of. I'll have to take a look again, considering this is my first time picking around with the scenario editor, making this setup, but generally it's an air superiority. The E-2C1 here is an AWACS, Airborne Warning Control aircraft. It has a air surface search radar, so it can, even without the pilot's Mark 1 eyeball, it can see up to a certain range aircraft, and it can also see surface units on the surface. It cannot find submarines. The P-3 Orion here, provided it's loaded up with anti-submarine warfare, can drop sonar buoys to find submarines, along with, provided it has the correct loadout, it can also drop torpedoes to attack them, the Mark 46. Or, with these little pods here, it can carry harpoons to attack surface units. It has a surface search radar, but it cannot find air targets except for via the pilot's Mark 1 eyeballs. And it just has chaff to defend itself. And then the airbase is the kind of, again, it's like an aircraft carrier where it's vulnerable by itself when it gets attacked, but it can launch units to go and attack for at longer range. It's, you know, longer range standoff. To actually control a unit, for example, if I wanted to tell this Los Angeles here to change course to head towards the surface group here,
Turn to course.
Just right-click.
276. Hell my.
And it will give an order. So I've just told them to come left, 2276, and that's the position they want to go to. Now, if I depause, the surface group will continue to sail straight, at least for the moment. The aircraft group will continue to circle, considering they're currently loitering at this position. The submarine will turn left, and the airbase will do nothing, considering I have not ordered it to launch anything. But we do have a chance to go and we're going to talk a bit about the... Now, each unit is different in itself. So this is a Spruance. We also have an Oliver Harris, a Perry, and a Galveston, and then the Force, obviously. And they each have their own unique weapon systems. So, to see what a unit has, and this is something I agree with Brother Monroe with his assessment of, you should always be trying to learn about your units, and, you know, whenever you can, pause and right-click and read the unit reference card. So the Spruance class destroyer can do 32 knots. It's not the fastest ships in the game. I'm pretty sure those are the Pegasus hydrofoils and stuff like that, the small attack craft. But it's pretty speedy. It displays 8,000 tons. Range is a non-factor for it, considering it's a surface vessel. As far as we're concerned for the scenarios involved, its range is infinite. Aircraft do have a range, considering they're much faster, and they don't have the fuel tanks that a surface vessel has. It has, in this case, some vessels have aircraft, some vessels don't. In case of the Galveston, it doesn't have aircraft, but the Spruance and the Oliver Hazard do. It has some Sea Sprites. Sea Sprites are these helicopters. So, these guys have a surface search radar on board. They have a radar warning receiver. They also have a MAD detector, a magnetic anomaly detector. They can also drop the same sonar buoys as the P-3 Orion, which sit in place and for a bit, and they listen. They're passive sonar systems, and they can also drop 2 Mark 46s, airborne torpedoes, with 8 nautical mile range. While Sea Sprites themselves again have a pretty long range, but they can move at 138 knots. So they got an extra 100 knots on the Oliver Harris Perry. But the Oliver Harris Perry has systems like ECM jammer systems, jam enemy radars to reduce the tracking performance, and also controls its chaff system. So it's kind of acts a bit like a radar warning receiver, considering depending on the missile incoming, for example, it may give off maybe an active radar missile, and so it will be giving off a radar pulse as it's coming in, which the ship can detect. It can also detect just passively radar emissions on the following bands. It has a towed array, a hull-mounted sonar, which is this bulge here, a navigation radar surface search, a Mark 23 TAS air and surface search radar, SPS-40 air surface search radar, and optics physical sensors. A pair of binoculars offer longer visual detection ranges than Mark 1 eyeball, so it can physically see a bit farther. It also has, you know, RIM-7, RGM 84s, RU-5s, Mark 46, Mark 45, and a Mark 15 CIWS. Although the CIWS is, well, it can be used to engage aircraft, but its main purpose is point defense. Last chance point defense. Fully automated, close-range weapon system, considering of a rotary 20mm cannon, and fire control, acquisition, and tracking radar. So its job is, you know, the long-range attempts to destroy missiles have failed, or aircraft. For example, the Spruance and airships that have RIM-7 will use the Sea Sparrow here, but not only against aircraft, but they will also launch it against incoming missiles. So it the ship will see a missile incoming, provided its radar is active. Considering the Sea Sparrow needs radar homing from the ship itself, considering it's a semi-active radar homing, so it requires guidance from whatever platform launched it to track on its target that it's been launched at. And it will use this first, along with the Mark 45, in order to attempt to destroy the incoming weapons at long range. And then, as it gets close, if that fails, whichever phalanx is on the side that the weapon is approaching from will also engage at maximum 1.6 nautical miles. So that's why it's a it's a last ditch, considering the speeds missiles are flying at. If your phalanx is firing, it is very much a case of either the ship is going to get hit soon, or the ship is going to survive. One of the two will occur. Notice the Mark 45 gun, which is the two 5-inch guns, forward and aft. We have the Mark 46 torpedoes, which are launched somewhere. We're already launched on the Spruance. Where are they launched from the Spruance? Considering it has 16 Mark 46s. I wouldn't be surprised if they launch out of these ports here. But I don't actually see a launcher on the deck itself. So my guess would be, considering I'm not told the Spruance to launch before, it comes out of these ports on the side here. That these probably open up, considering the ports on the side of the carrier for the carrier decks and all that, for the aircraft lifts, do actually open up. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is where they launched the Mark 46s from. It has some RU-5s, which is this launcher here. Now this is the ASROC. Anti-submarine rocket. Which on the surface immediately, and this is a good reason why you want to, look carefully through these ship references and weapon references. Well, why would you ever use this as a submarine versus the Mark 46? Because the Mark 46 has an 8 nautical mile range, whereas the RU-5 has a 6. But the RU-5 is a Mark 46 on a rocket. The ship will launch this up to 6 nautical miles ahead of itself, or wherever the rocket can launch, considering this is the launcher here, and fire it to position, and then the Mark 46 will be deployed and start searching by itself, considering it's an active homing radar. And it has no wire guidance, so once it goes searching, it goes searching. So it can effectively engage a submarine from up to 14 nautical miles away, which is pretty far. AGM-84 is the Harpoon. This is active radar homing, no big course correction. This comes in at 540 knots, 65 nautical miles, and this is the surface launch variant. There's a submarine launch variant, which we saw with the Los Angeles. It has one, and there's also an airborne launch variant, which the Intruder can carry, the Orion can carry, stuff like that. And then there's the RIM 7, which is the Sea Sparrow. So the Spruance can technically engage everything. The Forrestal can technically engage everything, but not by itself. It has to use its aircraft for that, and other units finding it. Same thing kind of with the Spruance. It can kind of detect everything itself, but it doesn't really want to, considering. The Galveston can't, and the Alvord Perry can also kind of detect everything itself. It's similar to a Spruance, except it isn't also similar to a Spruance. It has less defenses than a Spruance, obviously. You can also visibly see the Mark 46s here. It also has, only one gun instead of the two that the Spruance has. But it does have some advantages over the Spruance as far as I understand its launch system. So, ships like the Galveston when they're launching, this is something I found, they pull from magazine. Ships with these separate launchers, they pull from magazine, so they can launch both missiles, pull, launch, pull, launch, pull, launch, pull, launch as long as they need to. The Spruance has a box launcher. It can fire 8 rapidly. Technically, it can fire 8 at a single target, I think. Although I maybe can only track 2 at a time. I'm not 100% certain, but it can launch 8 very rapidly. Far more rapidly, potentially, than the Galveston class over there could launch its RIM 8s. It can launch its RIM 7s. But then it has to take like a half hour to reload its box launcher. The Galveston can keep launching until it runs out of missiles. Which is, part of the reason why, you try and find like submarines that with other units before your surface vessels. Like, this game is like rock, paper, scissors mixed with, hide and seek, effectively. Considering all you and your opponents have radar. That's what these ships are all currently set to ECOM. So they're currently not emitting anything, they're just listening. So they can detect enemy radar, or radar in general, or EM emissions, or passively detect sound and all that at a distance, depending on the sensors and, the sound, the amount of noise the thing that's making a sound is making, or the amount of energy a ship is outputting. But they can't, see that distance exactly. They can just see there's something roughly in an area emitting something or making a noise. And units will go through time. Like, if these were unknown contacts, they're not known considering I spawned them in. But these are Lancers, or they're T-22s with the long-range anti-ship missiles. And these guys may actually turn around and engage these guys, but normally these guys would be engaged about this range, or they'd be engaging long before this point. And these guys actually did keep their loadout. But, if this was actuality, at best, if these guys had the radar on, we might be able to see, hey, there's something emitting over here. In actuality, instead of we know there's a Tu-22 here, although we might be just visually spotting them at this point. But at longer range, we might just go, without a radar on, we might just go, hey, there's something emitting radar up here. And then with the radar on, we might be able to see, hey, there's a contact up here. We're just getting a radar contact, but it's, it's moving at 400 knots. It's probably not a civilian airliner. In this case, the same thing with ships. You can kind of see, hey, there's a ship radar, surface radar contact moving at 46 knots. No fishing vessel I know of can do 46 knots. At least not in the game, so it's like, okay, that's not a fishing vessel. Now, your ships are actually smart. So if I go like this, and these guys turn to attack, which I think they will, but they may when they finish their turn, considering they're going to loiter for a second and turn and follow the lead. But if they turn to actually attack, your ships will automatically move to defend themselves with their countermeasures. So chaff and all that is used for radar-guided missiles. It can maybe do some work against infrared, considering there's hot magnesium in the cloud, which may potentially distract an infrared-guided missile, but you definitely don't want to bet your boat on it. And noisemakers are to attempt to defend against torpedoes from launched from submarines and airdrop torpedoes and stuff like that. And again, both of these are, you don't want to be defending on them, considering it's very much a case of you should
Air search on.
be,
Radar Air search
relying
on
more not
Radar
being
high.
spotted than
Air search on. Radar eye.
than you know, defending yourself. Now you notice here I turned on air search, and suddenly the Spruance is turning and automatically engaging, even despite it's in weapons type.
Birds away. Track 70.
That's because it knows
1.
these are, and they're dropping chaff to defend themselves.
Track 70.
And they splashed
1 is toast.
They've not launched any missiles, despite having missiles. But you see, every time they are,
Track
well, they've managed to defeat the whole
0,
group
3.
by themselves. So your ships will automatically take actions to defend themselves and those in the area. And you saw there, the Spruance launched from its box, and same did the Galveston, despite being weapons tight, because they know that those are incoming hostile units that are attempting to attack them. With weapons free, the AI, though I will admit, the AI tends to be more conservative of its munitions than a player can be. So, in that example, I could have told the Spruance to fire 2 RIM 7s instead of 1 per target, which it would turn the default to. Same thing with incoming missiles. It will tend to default to just firing a single Sea Sparrow in defense against an incoming missile than 2. And so your units will defend themselves automatically. Like, they'll take the course actions and all that needed to bring whatever they need to engage a target to bear, and then they'll return to course. Now, the carrier didn't, considering it's center of the group, and I also didn't set up this formation. I just started a formation, a new surface group, and placed the carrier down and started placing ships down. In addition, in the group itself, and it automatically told them, hey, start going to screen formation around the carrier. And now, if you tell the carrier to launch and all that, it will also do what it needs to in order to launch the aircraft, and it'll come up to speed. You might turn it into the wind, depending. Same thing with the Spruance here. If it needs to recover aircraft, it needs to recover its sea sprites, it will slow down in order to facilitate the landing of the sea sprite. If it needs to, it all depends on the situation. But yeah, that's a very, very basic kind of... That's how you control units. If you want to tell a unit to attack, like if I wanted to go, hey, you know, engage this group over here, you can press this button here, or you can right-click, engage with, and then you can get a little bit more control instead of just single shots. Default, they were engaging until you're empty, but you can go, hey, salvo 4 RIM 7s at that track there.
Track 1, 0,
And so it launched
same
2.
launch, same launch.
And they'll also go SAM launch. Now, considering it's friendly, oh, yep, they also automatically deploy chaff in order to attempt to box the missiles, which it actually did. It actually foxed the missiles that time.
Birds away. Track 1, 0, 0.
So yeah, that's a big old blue on blue incident. And as you can see, it's still ready despite having just launched 4 missiles. So there's no downtime up until, I'm pretty sure, it...
Same launch, same launch.
Oh, it splashed the, yeah, it splashed the AWACS that time. You see it going down there. Yep, there it goes. So now the F-15 has taken over as group lead. And now they're just going to continue loitering. But yeah, they will... You can choose that and right-click, or you can right-click the ship and engage with. You can also tell them to navigate, to remove, resume course, change speed, turn on their ECOM, their sensors, formation, create formation, join formation orders, you know, the formation orders identify, air defense state, and ceasefire, which tells the ship to stop engaging. And that's it for the very, very kind of basics, like how do you control stuff. And so, you know, if you want to turn on radar stuff, you just, you know, hit this button here, set that, or you right click, sensors. If you want to launch things, you go here, you either right click flight deck, or you click here. You tell it, you know, what aircraft you want to launch, what load they want to be in, how many, launch, and then it will start pulling aircraft up through these doors here if it needs to. I don't know if these surface parks can actually launch or not, but they may just be decoration. If you want a formation, there's a log, which is here, which records everything. Even if it doesn't fully play the soundbite, it will record exactly time when it detects everything and what events happen. So you can see there was a 2-minute basically gap between when they took out the all with the tracks, the Tu-22s, Tu-22s, and when I told them to engage as a demonstration the E-2C. And you could also view your TAC map here and there, and you can also tell it the full screen, tell it to go back to minimize. You can drag it, so you can also issue orders by right-clicking on the unit on the TAC map. You can draw range circles, so with that, and that range circle will now follow the carousel around. Now that's a useless range circle, but you can then hit this eraser button, and then there goes that range circle. There's a ruler, or just a point, so you can make a mark. There's a ruler. Again, we'll just erase both of these, although if you erase one end of a ruler, it will leave that. And if you hold shift, you can do multiple, as is general. Hey, hopefully that's enough to give you some basic idea of just how to control your units in C-Power, if not how to use them, considering each unit is different, down to the ship and all that. They have different weapon systems, different missiles, and can be used differently. Like the SM-1 here on the Alva Perzi can be used against aircraft, but it can also be used against surface ships, which, as far as I understand, is not always the best against surface ships, but it can be used against surface ships in addition to harpoons. And I'm pretty sure it can also be used against incoming missiles. Same with the RIM-7s and RIM-8s. Yeah, hopefully you found this at least a little bit helpful. So take care, and hope to see you all next time. Have a good one, everyone.